Today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite new wave albums from the early 80s. It's an album that was an epic failure. This album was so poorly received in the UK upon its release in 1984 that the band's US label, Columbia Records, had second thoughts about releasing it stateside. That said, a year later, the album was released in the US, where it charted very briefly in the US top 200 albums before completely disappearing from the public eye. The album that I'm talking about is In the Long Grass by the Boomtown Rats. The Rats are perhaps best known for their hit, I Don't Like Mondays, but truthfully, that song is not the typical Boomtown Rats song. The US release was primarily propelled by the fact that the band's lead singer Bob Geldof, in collaboration with Ultravox singer Midge Ure, had released a Christmas single at the tail end of '84 to benefit the starving nations of Africa. That song, Do They Know It's Christmas, went on to be the biggest selling single in UK history, and Columbia execs, recognizing that they might be able to take advantage of that success with the release of In the Long Grass here in the States, decided to do so. So, what do I love about In the Long Grass? Well, I've got to admit, not everything. In fact, the first single that was released, Tonight, which was produced by Pink Floyd veteran James Guthrie, is a bit of a clunker in my opinion. However, there are three standout tracks that are among the best things that the Boomtown Rats have ever done. The rocker Drag Me Down, the acoustic anthem A Hold of Me, and the Boomtown Rats' best song ever, Dave. But wait, you say, I've got this album and there is no such song on my version. First, congratulations for having the album. That's a rare thing in and of itself. But that's because the US version, when it was originally released, had the same song but with altered lyrics called Rain. Apparently, the band was told that guys singing about another guy really wasn't a commercially viable thing to do, at least back in the early 80s. So in order to get that album released, they agreed to change things up a bit. It's really a tragedy. The original version is a stirring musical tribute/letter to the band's late saxophone player. He'd lost his battle with drugs, and it's so much better, so much more heartfelt than the altered version. I do, however, like the production mix of Rain better, and because Dave is readily available to everyone now, yeah, you can go out and find it. You can get it on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever. I guess it's a win-win. Also, if you listen closely, you can hear differences in the mix on Drag Me Down and a couple of other songs on the US version. And that's because, from what I understand, the Rats asked veteran studio mixer Bob Clearmountain to do them a favor, and he obliged. So all in all, it's a great album. It's one that, if you are familiar with the Boomtown Rats, if you were a fan of the Boomtown Rats in the late 70s, early 80s, you really, if you haven't listened to it, if you haven't heard it ever or in a long time, go out and search it out. It's well worth a repeat listen. For me, it's right behind Tonic for the Troops, and well ahead of Fine Art of Surfacing in terms of playability and what I enjoy listening to. The Rats broke up after this album, so it served as a nice swan song for a great band that didn't always get the recognition they deserved, and I think a lot of that had to do with Geldof's somewhat acerbic personality. Anyway, final thoughts, the Rats are back together again. They don't play any of the songs from In the Long Grass, which is a real shame, but I get it, they play the hits. And I guess they're doing the right things. You got to give the people what they want. That said, if they ever decided to add Dave into their set list, wait, that's just even too much to hope for. Just keep playing Mary of the Fourth Form, guys. That's a great song too. All right. Hey, I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments, or see them at least in the comments section. And if you like this video, if you're a fan of the Rats, give it a thumbs up. I'd also be honored to consider subscribing to my channel, but most of all, as always, a big thank you for watching.